Barbara Ann Agnes McClellan Skian.
When were you born and where?
October 18th, 1935, in St. Vincent's Hospital in Greenwich Village. I lived in Greenwich Village from the time I was born till I was 15 because I moved out to Queens.
Yeah.
So, yes,
At 50?
15 years I was in Manhattan. Over here is pictures that Neil took of Bank Street where I grew up. He didn't get the right apartment building, but he's got the street right.
Yeah.
I lived with my grandmother and my sister and my Aunt Ellen and my Uncle Tommy. We lived in the same apartment, and then I had aunts and cousins that lived in different apartments in the same building. Mm-hmm. Aunt Ellen, she was my glamour girl. Yeah. She had, I would say she had the strongest impact on my life. I can't think of anyone else that I, really looked up to like that. She just was that special person. Because we were a close clan.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at the time, but we didn't need anybody else because there was enough of us, to make up even a baseball team, I remember my kindergarten teacher because of my mother and father breaking up and all, and my grandmother having to work. The public school was willing to take me on as a kindergarten child before I was old enough.
Okay.
So I had the same teacher for 2 years because they didn't let me move up. I had to stay in kindergarten for 2 years. I don't remember much about my mother at all. She was just never around. My father, because I lived with my father's mother, I saw him occasionally, but not much because he was already starting with another wife and another family. Mm-hmm. So he never even came to see his own mother. So,
did you ever meet your mom or no?
Well, yeah, I spent time with her when I was little, but I just don't remember. I remember a few incidents where she was braiding my hair, mm-hmm. or she took me to the movies. Nothing, but no strong impact on my life.
Okay. Do you know where she went or no?
I don't think she went too far. I think she was local.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. Just not, very interesting.
You just didn't see her ever?
Never, no.
Mm-hmm.
When I was born, they were together.
Yeah.
They got married. They got married, and I was born, and then I had a brother and sister. Mm-hmm. So they stayed together for a while, but I don't have much of a recollection of it. Mm-hmm. So it leads me to believe that they weren't very compatible even then. Well, they were young. Yeah. They were 16 years old when they had me. That's too young to have anybody. Yeah. That's a baby already. I like the idea of telling people I grew up in Greenwich Village. Yeah. That always makes me feel important.
Yeah.
But what I always said is it was amazing that Manhattan was my playground. I'm 15. Okay. I moved to Woodside with my aunt. I lived with my aunt and my uncle and Rosemary. Mm. My cousin, another cousin, Rosemary, and Joanne. Joanne came a little later. I was lucky. I never had to make big choices. Most of my choices in my life, whether I was happy or not, were made for me. Mm-hmm. Like when my grandmother died and I had to go live with my aunt and uncle. Mm-hmm. That was a very big choice that had to be made, but I wasn't asked. Mm-hmm. I was told this is how it had to be done. When my grandmother died, as much as I loved her and everything, I thought about myself. I said, what's going to happen to me, mm-hmm. And I carry that with me now because I should not have. I should have only been thinking of the grief I should have been suffering. Because she was a very good woman and she took very good care of me. Yeah. Because my father was there the whole time, but it was quite obvious he didn't want me because he had 5 other children. But he did take my sister and made her life miserable, I understand. So, I think I had a good little break there. I think I was lucky.
Yeah.
Even though it was what happened was so sad and all, I think I got the best of the whole situation.
Yeah.
The only good thing that happened to me when my grandmother died and I had to move out to Queens is I was allowed to stay in the high school I was in.
Oh.
I didn't have to move. Evidently, the way the district was set up, I was the section of Queens that was allowed to go into Manhattan to high school. Because I was able to go to school, and then I had to get to work. I had to go to work after that. My aunt and uncle didn't have any money. Yeah. They had no money at all. So I was able to get a job at MetLife because MetLife, which was very big then, big insurance company, they were only 4 blocks from my high school. I see now this is where my reaction is coming from, having to move. I just went because I had to go, and then got the job, and then, you know, so it was just a matter of going to school, going to work, coming home, going to school, going to work, coming home.
Okay. So you didn't want to go to college though, right?
I didn't, and I always regretted that,
Why?
because I think it would have been better to have a better, more rounded education. Oh, I think my whole family, my grandmother, my aunts, they always went to the movies. We went to the movies on Saturday and we went to the movies on Sunday. They used to have B movies. They used to call them B movies on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Those movies were only shown on Tuesday. The actors and actresses in those movies, they weren't the big stars. They were kept for the weekend. Those movies were kept for the weekend. We used to like the kids. We used to like the B movies.
Yeah.
They were fun. Yeah, I was born in 1935, and the world was getting geared up for a world war, and it was coming off the Depression, and I was too young. Well, the war definitely had an impact on me, but I was unaware of it because I was too young. There were no men around. There were no fathers or uncles. Rationing, I remember that very much so. My grandmother, at the time when I was living with my grandmother, the ration books were very important, and you had to have them, and you could only use them, and when you ran out, you couldn't get any more if you overspent them, because food was it was mostly chicken. Couldn't get too much beef, you know, things like that. But we lived with it, and we could live with it. Not like today, not like the people today. It was so selfish that all I can think about is me. Those your grandfather bought for me and for your mother. He bought a star for each of us for Valentine's Day. Grandpa is my husband. I met him when I moved to Woodside. He was in a crowd there that I got to know. There was a draft in the United States still at that time, and all these young men had to serve time. And he was in the Navy, which was a 4-year time, and I met him one time when he was home on leave. That's a picture we got in Ireland of the street that I think it was Connie's father grew up on. Yeah, Claire. His mother was Limerick. When I had Neil and Kerry, I was home. I worked until I had Neil, and then we had Kerry, and then I didn't go back to work till they started going into elementary school. I didn't want, because that was what made me go back to work, because I realized when they went to school, wasn't any reason for me to be home.
Yeah.
Neither of them really ever gave me a problem, honestly. You know, they really didn't. What I liked was that they got along with each other. I didn't have to step in between if they had fights or anything, because they didn't have fights. Why we name it Kerry?
Yeah.
We had a discussion about it. We didn't know what to call her, and we couldn't find a name we liked. And we were originally going to call her Deirdre, but I didn't like the story about Deirdre, or Deirdre of the Sorrows. So I said no. And then I saw her. I heard Eileen Farrell sing a song, "The Kerry Dances," and your father and I liked it, so we said okay.
My grandfather.
Yeah, grandfather. That was the second easiest thing in my life. My children and my grandchildren. And your grandfather was pretty good at the beginning. He was getting very sick then, though it really was becoming very difficult. But you missed out on the part of him, and I don't think Devin remembers, but we spent a lot of time, with the two of you, taking Devin to the ecology center, and all the grandparents were there with the grandchildren. The only important events in my life were, I was going to say marrying your grandfather. That's definite. And having Neil and your mother. Those were the only things that mattered to me. And then when you came, and Devin, I kind of incorporated you into that. But that's my whole world. It's just them.